Let's take a brief look at the filter and filter lock up at the top right of our thumbnails. The filter lock locks our search parameters even if we move from folder to folder. So for example, if we were looking for images that have a green label and the images may be in a dozen or 3 dozen different folders, we can set the search parameters, lock them in, and then jump from folder to folder and do exactly the same search in every folder we're looking. Very, very useful. The one thing you have to remember though is that you have locked that search parameter in, because if you forget it could cause quite a bit of confusion sometime later. But as I've said, when things go wrong with our searches, the best thing is to sit back, take a deep breath and have a look, because generally we've got something set which we didn't anticipate. Now you can't help but notice there's a different set of images that I've imported into my catalogue. I imported them to demonstrate something and then changed my mind, so we may use them as we go through the rest of the videos. Now I've added a few green labels just dotted about these folders just to be able to demonstrate this. So what I'm going to do as a starting point is to select just one of the folders, the new one called Botanical 1. I called it Botanical 1 because there's 2 others that I may import yet. I'm going to go to the attribute and I'm going to select the green flag, and you can see I've labelled one of the images with a green flag from the Botanical 1 set of images. If I now lock this, I can jump to all of these one at a time, and bear in mind they could contain a lot more images than we have here. And in the Coffs Harbour we've got 3, Foster we have 1, Nambucca 1, Noosa National Park 1, a few more in Southwest Rocks, and you can see how useful that option could be. But it is quite important, I think, that once we're done we remember to click None and take the lock off. Otherwise we can be fooled when we come to do any searches or looking for images a little bit later. Now as you see, the last thing I did was to reselect my root folder for all of the images I currently have on this computer, which we've imported into our 2014 raw catalogue. If we go to the filters option here, we have a number of options, and I want to show you, I think just one, or 2. Let's look at the camera info. When we do this, we get another lot of useful information. First of all, we get told that from all of these images we now have 2 cameras used. One of them is an unknown camera. I'm not sure entirely why we've got an unknown camera, but we'll worry about that later. But the important thing is I can see what lenses were used. I can see that I've used a 16 to 35, 95 shots, 28 to 135, 102, 100 to 400, 116, and 1 or 2 unknown lenses as well. But I can even tell how many I've used and at what focal length. I mean, there's so much information or ways we can sort images, so if I wanted, for some reason, and I can't think of one at the moment, but if I wanted to see all the images that were shot at a focal length of 35mm, there I have them. Let's make my thumbnail smaller. There I have them, 15 of them. If I was looking to demonstrate showing the effects of a wide angle maybe, then I could look at my 16mm shots, and the same with the 100 to 400 zoom. Now of course all of this information comes automatically when we shoot our image. The metadata is recorded for us. Let's go back and look at one other option, and I'd like to open up the exposure information. And there we can see we have another batch, which I think is pretty self-explanatory because it's much the same as the previous. It breaks down all of the different focal length lenses we've used, and there you can see them all. The ISOs we've used, which could be very useful for me if I wanted to demonstrate a high ISO shot, how to defeat noise, then I'm going to need to zero in on those images which were shot with a high ISO perhaps. And the apertures, again, we can pick the apertures which are small. So if we're looking at a batch of images and we shot them with a range of apertures and one or two of them maybe don't have the depth of field we're looking for, we could use this option perhaps to single out those images which were shot with an f11 aperture rather than an f4 or 2.8. And there you can see we jump straight to those 5 images. Pretty neat stuff, I think. 60th of a second, 30th of a second. I think if you've been watching our videos through from the start and you've reached this point, you can probably fully appreciate now when I said that when we start to use Lightroom and the catalogue and the keywording and we start to sort our images, there is so much involved in this. It's just a period of learning, but we do need to give ourselves enough time to start picking up just how the software works. But once we see how it works, it can save us a whole heap of time in sorting the images we want.